Hey guys, what is going on? Sharp Thinking here. So I wanted to do a quick overview video on the Para 2, or the Paramilitary 2. This is a very popular knife. It is easily the most popular knife that knife guys, true knife guys, like knife nuts, like we're fucking nuts about knives, are into. There is a tremendous fan base surrounding specifically this knife. Similar situation to the XM18, or say, I don't know, the Spyderco 21. Very similar cult following, I guess you could say. It's not really a cult, but it's not really not a cult, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a knife I was extremely critical of at one point in time, and I don't think it was justified entirely. However, I don't think it was unwarranted overall. And I'm going to talk about that in this video. Let me get a drink. Sorry about that. Yeah, so anyway, this Para 2 is in CPM 10V. It has brown G10. It is a River's Edge Cutlery exclusive. This one is going to be going to Bama Knife Guy. Really good guy. If you're not subbed to him, you should evaluate what you're doing watching my content, because I am basically a dumb fuck. So this one's going to him. This one is mine. I have decided, I've made the executive decision to send him the one that is not kind of fucked up. This one is not perfect. This one I'm keeping. This one he's getting is about as perfect as a PM2 can get. And I guess I'll just talk about that real quick. So, this knife contains a bushing system. I'm going to assume that we all already know what a bushing system is in regards to a pivot. Now, Spyderco can really nail this, and when they do, it's awesome. The knife is very smooth, deploys well, no play, nothing weird going on. However, when they don't nail it, you get situations like this. This knife has the pivot cranked all the way down. It drops very, very freely. Not as freely as some do that I've seen. However, when you check for play, so you grab the knife and you grab it right at the tip, you check. You don't really even have to put force down to pick up play. It is very, very strange to me. I get that it's not an easy thing to pull off. Pivot bushings are typically only used in higher end knives. This is a high end knife. I'm not going to say it's not. However, the knives that I've known to traditionally employ or utilize pivot bushings are, the Spyderco 21. These knives are known for the pivot bushing. All of these knives have it. All of them are in ship shape. This one probably won't do it, but I've never used or carried it. Yeah, so I've only opened it a couple of times. My card is looking fresh. So, yep. But in this knife, it's perfect. In my copy, or my sample that I'm keeping, it's not so good. Is it the end of the world? Probably not. The knife still is going to cut just as well. It's just kind of annoying. And honestly, for the price, these new are $171 shipped from River's Edge. I think they were what were they, 160 or so new? I think that's what they were. They were I don't know, between 150 and 160. I think that's a really good price considering the 10V, and that's it. I mean, other than the 10V, it's a PM2. Any way you cut it up, a PM2 is, I don't know, what's a PM2 new? $120, $150? I don't know. But it's within $20 of a regular PM2. So to me, that's a good deal. What do I want to talk about here? So, in the past, like I've said, I've been extremely critical of this knife. This knife, I've seen PM2s go for $500. I've seen PM2s go for $600. I've seen PM2s go for $700. I shouldn't have to say this, but definitely don't pay $700 for a PM2. These knives are not worth $700 unless you're just trying to collect them all and that's your thing and that's what you want to do. Then do whatever you want. Actually, do whatever you want regardless. I'm just going to say I would not pay $700 for a Paramilitary 2. That's all I'm trying to say. So what was I critical of in past videos? I was critical of the behind the edge thickness. God, can't talk. I was critical of the behind the edge thickness, and I was critical of the ergonomics. So when discussing the PM2, I'm gonna get something to drink again. Sorry about that. So when discussing the PM2, two things that you will oftentimes hear is, one, how comfortable it is, and two, how well it cuts. So those are the two main appeals to this knife. And I'm going to agree with both of those, kind of. This knife, when you pick it up and you hold it in your hand and, say you're cutting a string, opening a box, doing EDC stuff, it's a comfortable knife. It is more than adequate. Sure, the jimping is going to tear your thumb up in hard cutting. I don't see a lot of guys hard cutting with these. I see guys carrying them every day for years and doing like everyday cutting. I don't see a lot of guys splitting logs with their PM2. It's just not the norm, from what I can tell. So, what was he talking about? Ergos? Yeah, ergos. So, the ergos are fine. There's a couple things that I think could be done better. This hump does not need to be here. Same thing I said about the military. This knife, I love the military. I think the military is, in cutting, a little bit more comfortable than the Peri 2. And I'm going to have to say I like the military overall a little bit more than the Peri 2. I'm going to stick with that. That's my stance. It's probably not going to change ever. I think this is one of the best done liner locks on the face of the earth. Let's see. This one too. The SOCOM. These boys are thick. Here. So you can see SOCOMs, good to go. No stick, nothing weird going on. So anyway, the reason why I even brought that up was this Millie, I have to switch it around because this is the lock bar cutout right here is misleading, but it has that same kind of bump mid-handle, and that does not need to be there. For whatever reason, it seems to be less pronounced, I guess you could say, on the military than on the Para 2. However, it's still there. I still don't like it. I don't get why it's there. I would have liked to see something a little bit more along the lines of this. And guys, keep in mind, I don't expect this handle to change because I criticize it. I mean, who am I, you know? It's probably not going to change. The main thing that I want to see changed with this knife, I'm about to talk about in maybe 5 minutes. So, anyway, that's the first thing. This hump, and there was a really great guy on Instagram that would do like a skinny mod to Para 3s that had a similar hump. Nick Maffey, he recently passed. So, rest in peace, Nick. Great guy. However, he's no longer with us to do these awesome skinny mods. Hopefully somebody steps up and, you know, starts doing them again. But anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, so ergos, this does not need to be here. It's just, you know, I don't know. Maybe it plays into the looks a little bit. This knife kind of looks like a stretch when I think about it. This one especially. I had a brown G10 stretch, and I feel like these look very similar. Whatever. Yeah, so next thing that I want to talk about is back here. So, what makes a handle ergonomic? So, it's all the force that... So all the force coming this way when you cut, say you're cutting into, I have a shotgun shell, that's all I have. So say you're cutting the shotgun shell in half. You're going to exert force down onto it. That force is going to be transferred to your hand. This has a lot of surface area to effectively transfer all of that force in cutting the shotgun shell in half to my hand. This, due to the compression lock, we have material removed. So that's no longer surface area that's going to interact with my hand. This is a problem because the more surface area you have, the more comfortable the knife is going to be. As long as the shape is still adequate. If it's sharp, which, let's talk about that. These are blocky handles. Very blocky. If you look at something, let's see. I guess we could talk about the Zahn. Zahn has much better like chamfering. It's much more rounded, much more comfortable. It is still blocky in some parts, like back here, but a lot of the places that, you know, you experience a lot of pressure around. Same with the what do you call it? The Sebenza. Big chamfers all around the knife. Very comfortable, and that's the case with all the Sebenzas I have. So with this knife, it's very blocky, squared off shoulders. So not only that, we only have one liner. This G10 gets super thin back here. So if we're really hard cutting, it's gonna probably leave a mark. Is it the end of the world for most guys? Probably not. Is it gonna be okay? Sure. What else did I want to talk about? Jimping. I know that some guys fought for jimping all over knives. I just want to say I don't think it makes that big of a difference. I think I get more out of like handle texture than I do out of jimping itself. Also the shape of a blade. So with the Zahn, you can kind of rest your thumb in here. That is something I've really grown to appreciate. Jimping, I just don't care for it. So what would I like to see done with this knife? I would like to see, if nothing else, like the handle, sure, it's not the most comfortable. It's better than a lot of things. A lot of knives are very, very uncomfortable, and I'm not going to name any, because, you know, I don't want to call anybody out. But I mean, there's a lot of knives that are pretty uncomfortable, especially due to jimping placed in odd spots where it just really doesn't need to be. It's not a good look. And even though I love the knives that are like that, many of them, it's nice to see that there's no jimping down here. None of that bullshit going on. What's next? Oh yeah, so, and this is an interesting thing that not many people think about. If you were to grind this knife thinner, this knife is about 20 thousandths behind the edge. This LUDT is about 10. This LUDT is about 8, I want to say. 8 to 10, depending on where you check. It gets a little bit thicker at the tip, and then thinner down here. If you took, I don't know, say 5 thousandths off of this, this knife is going to be much better at cutting, meaning that we no longer have to exert the same amount of force to cut the shotgun shell in half. So because it is thinner behind the edge, it will be easier. And this knife, like, it's pretty thick behind the edge, but everything else going on with the blade, other than the behind the edge thickness, is perfect. You have that nice distal taper. You have a lot of good shit going on. And if they're like, okay, if I told you I loved this blade shape, which you guys already know I do if you've watched my stuff, and I told you I hated this one, I'd be full of shit. It's the same fucking blade shape. Like, it's, yeah, sure, it's, you know, 0.56 inches shorter or whatever. I think it is actually 0.56. These blades are marketed as being 0.44. So, yeah, 0.56. Doesn't matter. Whatever. The blade is a nice shape. It's got a very nice point to it. Sure, it's a little delicate. You don't always need a super sturdy point. You just don't, especially for EDC. It's kind of one of the things I like about this is you have a nice point, but it maintains stock thickness all the way through up until the point. And then it gets to be about as thin, a little bit thicker than the PM2. Yeah, so anyway, if you thin this knife out, say 5 thousandths, 10 thousandths would be really great to see. You're actually not only improving the cutting performance, but also you're improving the ergonomics, because now, say you're cutting through rope, you don't have to exert the same force. So now, I mean, I shouldn't have to explain it, but if I'm pushing really fucking hard on this knife trying to cut, say, I don't know, where is it? I batoned this with an S90V blade. This copper, say I'm trying to cut this copper in half and I'm just pushing and pushing and pushing, that would cause major discomfort. So if I'm exerting a lot of force on cardboard, something I can actually cut, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so if I'm cutting through a piece of cardboard, it's, we'll say 2-ply cardboard, or 3-ply, whatever. The ergos, if the knife cuts well, the ergos are, how do I say this in a way that I don't sound like an idiot? Here, let me pause real quick. All right, guys, I'm back. So, like I said, it's like 1 in the morning, almost 2 now. Yeah, so if there's less force going this way because the knife cuts better, then there's going to be less force transferred to your hand, which means this kind of sharp situation we have going on is going to be mitigated slightly by the fact that this now cuts better. That's all I was trying to say. I don't know why I had to complicate it. Choked up, pretty comfortable. I think the clip becomes a little bit more of a hot spot in that position. Oh no, it actually gets reduced. So when you're gripping the knife here, you feel the clip a little bit. I'm gonna say you can see right here where the clip makes contact on my hand. There you go. And then if I grip up here, now it's a little bit more concentrated down here. I guess we'll test tip up. Well, no, I'm not even going to test tip up. There's no point. Or a tip down carry. My bad. Let's see. What else is there to say about this? CPM 10V looks promising. That's a little bit more specific to this knife. I like the brown. It is a very cool color. I'm kind of on like a tan kick. Not a tan. This is more... I keep calling this tan, and Microtech keeps saying it's not tan. I don't know what they call it, but I call it a tan Cerakote. I like these browns, though. It's kind of a cool color. I'm spending a lot more time outdoors, which is always fun. But anyway. Yeah, so moving right along. This knife is very well done. No side to side. I think I already touched on that. I've done a few takes of this. No side to side. Centering is perfect. You can see the action. It's nice and smooth. Snappy deployment. This is the one that's going to Bama Knife Guy. Here's mine. And I can't remember if I touched on this. The tolerances are not where they need to be. So the action looks good, everything looks good, but there's side to side that cannot be taken out by tightening this pivot down. That's a big problem with the knife. I've known of a few people that have had that problem. I don't really know what the resolution is for it. I hate that I can't propose one because, you know, if it's a known issue and I'm just talking about it to talk about it, it's kind of dumb. I don't know. But yeah, it's an area that they need to focus on. I'll say that. We can always just be mindful of things, and sometimes being mindful of it and being aware of it is enough to fix it. I don't think that they can't pull off a bushing pivot by any means. Obviously they can, because they did it here. However, it's something that takes super tight tolerances. That's kind of the reason why Chris Reeve was the only one in the game doing it for a good number of years. But yeah, so there's a lot I like about this knife. It carries well, carries better than any SNG out there. I'll tell you that much. Strider SNG. It's a nice little knife. I mean, it's right in the perfect EDC size. Yeah, it's fun to play with. Cuts decently well, all things considered. It's not uncomfortable. It's not super comfortable either. It's a good knife, though. And I think Spyderco makes a good knife. I'm not always carrying a lot of Spydercos now. Like, this is the only one other than my 10V that I still own, this military. But yeah, they make a good knife. And I know I was extremely critical of the Para 2 and the Para 2 fanboys and all the shit that they get into with the, you know, the $5,000 PM2s and whatnot. But really, it is a good knife, and there's a reason why they're so enthused about it. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it drives me off the fucking wall. It's all good. I'm happy to have these two. Like I said, 10V. I'm happy to have one. I'm happy that I got to get one for Lee, Bama Knife Guy. But yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry I haven't been putting out more content. Hopefully with this whole coronavirus thing, I'll be able to kind of fulfill my promises to you guys. I know I have... just know this. I've been wanting to put out more content, but it's not always possible, especially with school being as vigorous as it is. I literally finished an essay, let's see, at 1 a.m. It's now 1:41. So, yeah, it's a hell of a ride. But it's all worth it, so they tell me. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.